when you go through school, people want to get high marks, and then they go, high marks, what do you think I should do, Mum, Dad? Well, why don't you be a lawyer? Why don't you be a doctor? Because it's a prestigious thing with high marks. I said, well, that's not going to make you happy.
It's status.
It's a status. And you might have a perception of being a doctor, but maybe you hate blood. So that's not going to work out. And I think so many people make very poor decisions on their career that they may be doing for 40 years because they get in their comfort zone and they don't want to change. And 80% of the workforce don't like what they're doing. And I think it's madness.
In 1837, Horace Mann created the education system, a system at the time designed to pump out factory workers and professors. The same system that is still being used today in the 21st century. Now, Mann's system is backfiring. We are being moulded by the same industrial system that has existed for close to 200 years. That system delivers us into a digital economy that has no need of our outdated skills. This isn't our teachers' fault. This isn't the government's fault. This is due to a rapidly changing world full of technology and unforeseen circumstances. And us Gen Zs are caught in the middle. Welcome to the Driven Young Podcast, the podcast for stressed, overwhelmed young Australians, teaching you practical life skills you can implement now to set yourself up in life. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Welcome back to the Driven Young Podcast, and I'm just going to say off the bat, this is probably my favorite episode we have done so far. It's definitely in the top 3 because it aligns so heavily with what the show is all about, and I'm so excited for what you're about to listen to. If you listened to the last episode I did with Dale Beaumont, you would know that he mentioned starting a personal development company for teenagers with his friend back in 2001. Well, this is his friend, Brent Williams. And 20 years later, that company is still going strong. As the co-founder and head presenter of Empower You, Brent has been busy helping young people go through the life-changing seminar across Australia and around the world. At 19, he co-wrote the best-selling book, The World at Your Feet with Dale Beaumont. Brent is also a highly sought-after keynote speaker for both corporate and school environments, teaching the simple yet powerful success principles he teaches at Empower You. Brent has been nominated twice for Young Australian of the Year and has won the Generation Y Young Leaders Award with Dale for their work with Empower You. Empower You is all about teaching young people practical life skills, which is what this podcast is all about. And that's why I am in love with what Brent is doing. In this episode, we get into his story and why he started Empower You. He teaches us the 6 pillars of success every young person should know. We talk about mental health and why so many people are suffering from it. Brent shares with us a social media experiment he did to help remove our addiction to phones. We get into why school is failing us and why we should be learning more practical life skills. And that's just scratching the surface. This is the longest episode I've ever done because we just could not stop talking. We spoke for another hour off camera after the interview, and he actually invited me to attend his upcoming events to see how he runs things from the inside out. So if you are new here, you've chosen an epic episode to get started on. And if you are a regular listener, I know you are going to love this. If you can, try give the entire episode a listen. We cover some really important stuff towards the end. And finally, if you get any value out of the show, please leave a review or a rating or subscribe to the show. Also, feel free to message me on Instagram. I don't make any money from the show, and I put about 30 to 40 hours into it a week. And I love receiving your messages and chatting with you guys. It's a really awesome part of my day. Otherwise, over to Brent. Brent, welcome so much to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Super excited about this conversation. I think Driven Young, my brand, and your company, we have very similar alignments, and that's why I wanted to bring you on the show. But before we kind of get into all that sort of stuff, I'd love to just know a little bit about who you are, kind of what you do, and also what you did after high school. I think it's a really cool perspective to see what people did after high school and just what you're currently up to.
Yeah, sure. So I run a company called Empower You. We run personal development and life skills programs for teenagers. We've been doing it for 20 years will be next year, 20th anniversary. I'm very proud to say that, being a business that long. That's one of my passions. My other passion is film. Not that I'm on the podcast today to talk about that, but certainly filmmaking is the other passion for me. And I feel very blessed that I live a life on my terms. And I suppose that was really the big motivation right from the get-go, was to live a life on my terms. I don't think enough people do that. But in terms of what I did after high school, there's a bit of a story to that, as there often is.
Let's hear it.
So I finished high school in 1999, and my plan at that point in time was I want to be a filmmaker, a director. My hero, Steven Spielberg, but people closest to me would say things like, Brent, you're a smart guy, get a real job.
For sure,
yeah. Particularly in Australia, filmmaking is a very hard career to pursue at the high level.
And in 1999, oof.
Yeah.
Like it's developed since then, but it's still...
so much. That's right. And so it's not that I let go of the dream, but it certainly took a bit of the wind out of my sails. I'd enrolled in Sydney University, not because I had a degree I'd pursued for a career, but because all my friends were doing it. As so often people go to university for that reason. I think it's only 1 in 10 people that start university actually use their degree.
Yeah.
1 in 10.
Wow, okay. That's really fascinating.
And
there's another stat, like 62% of university students consider dropping out.
Oh, I'm surprised it's not even higher than that, to be fair. I think it's, I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but, university, I don't know many people that have done a degree and gone into the workforce and said, I'm so glad that I went to university for that wonderful education.
Neither do I.
They usually say I got way more experience in the real world than I did there, but anyway. And so I was actually, between high school and university, there's this, I'm sure you remember this, there's a window of time where there's real freedom. You know, there's no more teachers, no more homework. You're 18, maybe you got your first car. I did have my first car, 1984 Mitsubishi Colt.
You can drink, you can go out.
You can do all that stuff,
Yeah.
and it's fun. And so I used to go to this nightclub every Tuesday night. And we went Tuesday night because Tuesday night was university night. That meant university girls. So I was there one night, and a buddy of mine won $2,000 on the poker machines, like the feature, and he's flashing it around. And my first reaction was great. You're going to shout everyone drinks, and then that quickly turned concern when I noticed the attention that it attracted. And so I thought, well, maybe we should leave. And I said, how about I get you a car and I'll drive around the front so you can walk out and go. And he said, okay, that's a good idea. Now, I wanted to do this because his car was a red BMW M3 convertible, turbocharged, mag wheels. He was a mechanic by trade. This was the coolest car that I knew anyone owned. So I thought, here I can drive it. Even if it's 100 meters, I'll make it a good 100 meters. So I go out to the street where he's parked the car, and a couple of guys approach me. Long story short, they asked for money. I don't have any, so they pull a gun out and put it to my head.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
in Australia?
In Flemington. And they asked for my key card. One guy went off to the teller in the club, and the other guy had the gun to my head. And I suppose in that moment, a lot of things happened. Firstly, I tried to talk my way out of it, and that just didn't work. Then an interesting thing happened. My life flashed before my eyes. You've probably heard of that saying before.
It's cliche, but
yeah,
true.
It is cliche. And what it was, if this was a timeline in my life, he was birth, he was 18. It was all the significant moments that had happened to me, both positive and negative. Things like first day of kindergarten, everyone's crying, to meeting Healthy Harold for the first time,
nice,
to playing handball competitively. In the
we had
courts.
a similar upbringing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Going from primary school to high school, not knowing anyone, to my first girlfriend, to holidays with my family and friends. So all these significant school captain year 12. These moments that have shaped who I was. But when I got to the present and being in the moment, the worst thing happened. All of the regrets that I had came flooding in. All the things I wanted to do but hadn't done yet. And yes, I was only 18. I had my whole life ahead of me, but I knew in my heart of hearts that I'd started to take the path of least resistance. As mentioned, I wouldn't say I'd let go of the dream of filmmaking, but I was discouraged. And this was like a lightning rod for me. And it made me really think, you miss 100% of the shots you never take in life. And I'd hate to survive this situation, then live a long life, look back and say, I never tried pursuing that dream. So it was actually probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me because it changed everything. Yeah. The next day, the sky was bluer, the grass was greener, the air was fresher, and I had a very new lease and focus on life. And so what I did after high school and after this moment was I realized that I didn't have all the life skills that I thought I needed to excel in whatever I wanted to do, and ideally filmmaking. And so I went along with a friend of mine who Dale Beaumont.
Yeah.
And
we just had him on the show.
Yeah, we went along to this wealth creation seminar, and it'll be interesting to see how much our stories marry up here. And the person who was running the seminar, he was promising everyone in the room, it was a 90-minute information evening. He said, I'll teach you how to turn $1 into $1 million in 7 years. And I was like, well, I got $1, so I qualify. And he talked a lot about business and property and shares and entrepreneurship. And to be honest with you, a lot of it went over my head, but I was excited.
Yes.
It was exciting.
Just a feeling of what is this?
Yeah, and could I do it? And if I did it, I'd leverage my time. I could fund my movies. And so I signed up and did this course. It was like $5,000 for 3 or 4 days in the Hunter Valley. And I didn't look at the cost. I looked at the value.
Yeah.
I realized the best investment was myself. So I went along to this thing, and it was... it started off with dancing and the presenter came up and he's running on these chairs and was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, this is a bit too much. But I realized when I reflect back on that now, it was more my ego. It was my ego kind of, criticizing and judging something that was out of my comfort zone. suffice to say, the seminar started and it was the greatest thing I'd ever done in my life up until that point.
Wow.
And, I was a confident person, but this just took me to another level. And so many of the participants at this seminar came up to me with tears in their eyes at the end saying, I wish I had this at your age.
Yes.
What different decisions may have made in my life had I been exposed to this as an 18-year-old. Now I'm 40 at 50 years of age, and I can't turn back the hands of time.
I just had this actually. So I just got back from a retreat on the weekend, like a similar thing. It wasn't like anything official. It was just a bunch of really cool people.
Yeah.
And we're all probably, I think we went from 18 to 27. So it's a decent actually width. But the one 18-year-old, because I'm the second youngest, which was 22, and then the girl was 18, and everyone's just like, man, it's so good that you're 18 and you're at this, and you're like, I would have loved to have this at 18 and that's what I try to put in my listeners, like they're 18 or they're this age. It's like, get ahead now. Yeah. Because it's just going to launch you.
100%. I think, and obviously we're going to jump around a little bit here, but I think what I always say to my audience, the massive asset they have is their age, if they use it wisely.
Yeah.
Most of the older generation have a negative perspective on young people. So if you as a 16 to 18-year-old or, in that teenage demographic, if you come across to the right person with the right attitude, it just opens up doors.
Oh, yeah.
It just fast tracks.
You stick out like a sore thumb.
100%.
Although I think it is the stereotype that old generations kind of look back and go, we're lazy and everything, it is kind of true for a lot of people in our generation. So if you're sticking out and you're actively going to these sort of things, like it just gives you such a big advantage over everyone else.
You just need to show up.
Exactly.
You just need to show up. By showing up, you're a point of difference.
Yeah.
You're special. And if nothing else, that creates a reference for you to make you feel special, which only propels you to take more action, because we all love to feel significance. And love and connection. It's two of the 6 human needs. And so this course we did, and it was life-changing. It really was. And we joined that company full-time and immersed ourselves in the environment. And we were working 18-hour days. I remember we were in the city at 7 a.m. in suits, okay? George Street, CBD, handing out flyers. And there was a lot of judgment, a lot of criticism. Like, you kind of build some emotional muscle doing that. Then we'd finish that at 8 a.m. I'd go to the office at 9. I'd start taking the phone calls from the people that took the flyers at 7 a.m.
Right, yeah.
And I'd book them into a seminar. So I'd do sales for about 4 hours. Then I'd put on my logistics cap and I'd set up the venue for the actual seminar itself. Then we'd have them all come in. Then I'd do the introduction for the presenter. So I was learning my presenting skills. And then I'd work the logistics of the room until the end when I had to do sales. And then we'd finish up at 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And so it was a really...
Did you learn more on that day than you would like 2-3 a month at school?
If you've seen the movie Boiler Room, I don't know if you've seen the movie Boiler Room or Wall Street, it felt like that. Yeah. It was very intense. Lots of young entrepreneurs making lots of money, but working really hard, cutting edge stuff. I mean, this was when the seminar industry was really coming about in Australia. There was no internet seminars. There was no real property seminars. What there are now, there's so many of them.
Everywhere.
And so this particular person and this company were real pioneers in the industry. And so every seminar that we ran in the Hunter Valley, which was once a month, the big shows, people kept crying, saying, I wish I had this at your age. And that was really where it began for me. And I made the decision with Dale. We wanted to set up an organization that really filled in the gaps in teenagers' education and gave them the tools and strategies to make it in the real world. Yeah. To complement what's done at school. While I'm not the biggest advocate of the school curriculum, I do think that we very much marry them with the life skills like emotional intelligence, creativity, goal setting, money and finance, which I know we've talked about, and career guidance. And that's where it all began for me.
Wow. So you just had that was the word, the sentence, I wish I had this at your age. So you went, okay, let's create something for people at this age. Yeah. And that's what we've done. And that was Tomorrow's Youth originally called?
We call it Empower You now and it was only in recent years I've just decided to get rid of the name because we had a company name Tomorrow's Youth, program Empower You, and it was just confusing to people. Yeah. So if Tomorrow's Youth is still the entity, but I've just gone, let's just scrap that and just focus on the name and brand it that way.
Yeah,
the company's Tomorrow's Youth, yes.
Yeah, great. And I love what you said, emotional intelligence, creativity, financial literacy. These are all stuff I cover on my podcast and all stuff I think we should be learning as well. And when I talk to people, I don't think I've ever met a single person who's gone, no, I don't think we should be learning creativity. No, I don't think we should be learning financial literacy. Everyone agrees, yet for some reason, nothing's happening in the education system. We keep learning, biology, maths, science, which is great if that's what you want to do. But really, how many people who study biology actually use that in the real world? One in the class, or maybe less probably, like one in the whole school, or one in that year group. And so I just think it's a huge, important gap. And so who are your age demographics? Like, what are you are you going after senior high school? Is it earlier, like what, 13? What age are we
so we advertise 13 to 21. The youngest person I've had to empower you, and the mother lied to get her child there, was 8.
That.
Yeah, she was just so desperate, and she's like, oh, my daughter's 11. She turned off like, that's not 11.
Yeah.
But once she was there, we let her stay. But usually it's about 11 or 12 is the youngest. And it's usually girls because they're more mature than the boys.
Right, yeah.
And the oldest we've actually had in Empower You, hand on heart, the oldest person we had was 44.
Nice.
Now, that was, again, an extreme. What happened was I was running a program up in Bowral in Queensland, and she looked like grandmother, to be honest with you. She came and she said, I'd like to do this course. I said, it's for teenagers. And I was 24 at the time.
Yeah.
She says, I do. I said, well, I've never had anyone have this request. She says, but I really would like to. I've heard a lot about this and I think I'd get a lot out of it. I said, well, there's a couple things would need to happen. One, you'd need to follow my lead the whole weekend. Like, I'm running the show, so you need to be humble. She said yes. I said, you'd need to be really chill with everyone. Like, you can't be weird and like, I'm older and I know it all. Like, you need to just go with it. And 3, I need to ask everyone's permission first.
Of course, yeah.
So I went in the room and said, look, I've got this woman out there. She's in her 40s, but she's really keen to do this. Is everyone okay? And they said, sure. And she came along. And truth be told, she was amazing, got a lot out of it. But we generally go up to about 25.
Yeah.
Generally speaking. We generally have up to about that. And because I run an adult course now, equivalent.
Right. Yeah,
and I've done that for about 5 years now because the parents need it just as much as their kids.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I think a huge part of it I think as much as school-educated children, your parents need to be there as well. And so it's a huge thing that I see a problem with. And I guess when we're talking about following the traditional path, which is, as you mentioned, you wanted to be a filmmaker, people go, oh, Brent, there's not a stable job. How are you going to make money? How are you going to pursue? What if it fails? All these questions come up, especially in 1999, but in even 2020, I think it's less so, but it's still a problem. But I think parents are giving children their advice for what they wish they had when they were 18 and 19 back in the 90s. Yeah. And the world's changed since then. Yeah. Back in the 90s, going to uni was like a very, very intelligent. That's what was, what if you want to be smart and successful, that's what you do. Now that's not the case. As we mentioned before, I can't think of a single person who attributes their success or their happiness to going to university.
No.
And if they do, it's because of the friends they made or the connections they made. Yeah. It's not the actual coursework itself. And I think that's something super powerful as well.
Yeah. I had a principal from my old high school contact me probably about a year ago, and he came in, he asked me to do a one-day seminar for all the teachers on entrepreneurship.
Nice.
And I said, well, that sounds exciting. I didn't know exactly where I'd start with it, but I love the hey, I'll give that a go. And I said, why do you want to do that? And he said, well, we've had futurists come into the school, and they are saying in the next 20 years, 60% of the workforce are going to be self-employed. So there's no point training them to be in a job, to be in employment. They need to be able to be entrepreneurial. And he wanted me to teach them because the teachers aren't entrepreneurs, they're teachers. Nothing wrong with that, but they are taking a career, so to speak. And it does need to change. And I think when evolution, things are moving faster and faster and faster. So fast.
Another is I think we're consuming more information in a day than our ancestors did in their entire lives. Yeah. That's just how do we keep up with that? And it's even if we said the schooling system hasn't radically changed for over 100 years. It's obviously they've done a lot of stuff to improve it. But even if it was created in 2010, it still needs to change for 2020. Yeah. It's just changing so fast.
Yeah. I think the difficulty is, and I spent some time in the early 2000s on a project called Kickstart. And this project was, we had a vision of creating 80 DVDs. I mean, you wouldn't do DVDs now, but at the time, 80 DVDs. And we said, we'd like to stream it online. That seemed like a cool thing in 2004. What do you mean stream it online? Yeah, go on the website and watch it. And
ahead of your time.
And what it was 80 DVDs on the top 80 careers in the country. And it'd be a 30-minute, if you want to be an architect, you have an idea of what that's like, but do you know the reality of it? You might have seen a movie with an architect, that'd be cool, but what's the, And so what it was it would be 30 minutes and we'd interview someone at university studying it. Well, here's what it's like to study architecture. Then we go to someone first year out, pays crap, but I'm enjoying it. Yeah. I'm finding my feet. Someone 5 years on, I'm getting more projects, pays really good. And then someone who owns a firm. And so we were going to have 80 DVDs. So on these careers, and we're going to give them to every high school in Australia.
Nice.
We spent 2 years on the project. We developed the first one on architecture. That's why I reference it. And we had Brendan Nielsen, who was the Minister of Education at the time. Now, the Department of Education were all for it. But we needed the minister to sign off on it. And it was interesting because in that time, it was so difficult for them to just stretch and change anything that they were currently doing. And I suppose the lesson I got from that, and the ID fell over, because when Brendan Nielsen was going to sign off on it, he then moved to defense and the whole idea got squashed.
No way.
And I am actually, seeing as we're bringing it up, I am thinking about revisiting that idea 16 years later because it'd be a lot easier to do now.
I'd love to help. That's a project. I'm working on like creating a documentary kind of exploring that. And I've even seen Billie Eilish, she's a singer. She's like, when she was 15, so she blew up when she was about 15, she's 18 now. There's like this huge famous interview on YouTube. It's got like 40 million views where they just interview her and then they interview her exact same questions a year later and they compare her reactions. Then they do it again. Now they're up to like the 4th year and it's really fascinating. She's like,
wow.
How many Instagram followers do you have? And she goes, 200,000. That is insane. Then it cuts to 40.1 million or whatever.
Wow.
And it's just, they keep asking her questions. They're like, are you happy? And she's just like, yes. And you can see she actually dips in happiness when she gets more famous a little bit and people comment on that. But it's a similar thing. It's like seeing someone a 1 year, 4 year, 5 year. Because if you're going to be doing architecture for the long term, and you notice that most architectures aren't, it's not what they thought it was going to be at 5 year point. Maybe that's something to reconsider.
That's right. And I think that, and this is a big focus to empower you when we talk about careers, is again, when you go through school, people want to get high marks and then they go, high marks, what do you think I should do, Mum, Dad? Well, why don't you be a lawyer? Why don't you be a doctor? Because it's a prestigious thing with high marks. I said, well, that's not going to make you happy.
It's status.
It's a status. And you might have a perception of being a doctor, but maybe you hate blood. So that's not going to work out. And I think so many people make very poor decisions on their career that they may be doing for 40 years because they get in their comfort zone and they don't want to change, and 80% of the workforce don't like what they're doing, and I think it's madness. So I think the more educated people are on the career path, what they think, but really nutting it out, and that's where the kind of DVDs were the inspiration, get a life of a career. It was why I wanted to be a filmmaker. I thought filmmaking, whole life, that's so cool because you're constantly traveling, you're meeting cool people that are very passionate about what they do. Every project's different. You're always learning new skills. And that was the appeal. One of the reasons I wanted to be in film is it seemed like if I'm going to do it for my life, I think I'm going to love it for my whole life, not just for a little bit. It's not monotonous.
Crucial.
So crucial.
And because it's funny, we're actually so similar. I wanted to be a filmmaker as well. So I've been making videos since I was 11. They're on YouTube. You can watch me play lightsaber fights with my mate.
Okay, wow, very cool.
So I started off with my mum's camera recorder or whatever, and then my first job, I studied at AFTRS for like 6 months, just did like a editing diploma, and then I've been making videos, and I did video marketing, and now I've kind of merged into what this is, and this is the reason I've kind of blown up in TikTok, and I'm filming this right now is because I've got that video experience. So I can really relate to that because video is like, it's always a new project, it's always different, and it's something I see a lot is they'll be like, I've got 20 years experience. You've been in this job for 20 years. That means I've got 20 years experience. Do you have 20 years experience or do you have 3 years of experience and then you've just repeated that skill for 17 years? Yeah. Whereas filmmaking, it's like you're always new project, new problems, new solving. And there's so many things. Like I think doctor, you've got 20 years because always new stuff happening. But that's something I think you see a lot of as well. Yeah.
I look at Clint Eastwood, one of my heroes. The guy's almost 90. He's still doing $100 million movies. Yeah. And he says, I'm still learning. Why do you keep doing this and getting better? Because I'm always learning. It's always something different. I mean, the technology. I did short films in the early 2000s. So I've written and directed 6 short films. And I bought this fancy Panasonic camera that was used for shooting Law and Order and things like that. Now it's a paperweight.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like how advanced we become. I mean, here you are using an iPhone to film.
It's 4K. I'm not using 4K because I don't need to. Yeah. But man, it's good.
Yeah, incredible. It's so much easier now. But you know what? The challenge with that, there's a concept I talk about at my seminars. I have what I call the 6 pillars. So I write up on flip charts. It's an old school way. I don't use PowerPoint or anything like that. It's just flip charts. And so by the end of the weekend, the whole walls are covered with these flip charts. And they're really great visual references for the different ideas, and people dictate them. But I realized in the last few years, there are 6 that stand out above all the others. They're all the first one is around comfort zones. The second one's about taking responsibility. The third one's about state and strategy. So state of mind combined with the strategy is going to give you a result. The fourth one is about following recipes. Find people that have the results you want and follow those recipes. It's a much faster way than trial and error. And I've lived my life completely like that. And Dale probably, if he kind of picked up on what he's done with Business Blueprint, his books, it's all following recipes.
Blueprint.
It's blueprints, yeah. It's just like, here's how it's done and follow it. And so, but the one I wanted to reference now is, during the money section, I talk about delayed gratification. The importance of, you want something, you've got to earn the right.
For sure.
And I talk about 3 circles. So the first circle is the dream. We all have a dream, dreams, whatever the dream is, doesn't really matter, but you have a dream. But what's in equal proportion to that dream is the struggle. but it's through the struggle you earn the right to have the prize. And what a lot of people now want to cheat the struggle and go straight to the prize and have instant gratification. And so the challenge point in hand with having things easier, sometimes people don't stretch as much because it's easier. And when it's old school and you had to work really hard for it, you kind of earned it.
And less competition.
Yeah.
Like those who really wanted it had to put in the work. If you wanted to film, and I mean, like Spielberg and that, like making movies back then was so hard. Now there's probably like 10,000 people with, just in your area who are making movies.
Well, that's right. I mean, my favorite movie of all time is Jaws.
Yeah.
Both for the film, but what the film then did for cinema and the story of the making of the film. And I mean, they were sitting there like, I can imagine like at a kitchen table, cutting the frames and sticking them together. Here we are with like Final Cut and Premiere Pro, just snap, like it's such a different game now.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And I've seen that as well. Same like Back to the Future and stuff with Spielberg as well. Like,
yeah.
It's just, and you only get one or two takes. You can't be doing 15 takes
well,
on a shot.
Right, especially on film. Yeah,
especially on film.
Yeah.
So and so the 6 pillars. Do you want to expand on those a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So the 6 pillars. So my seminar Empower You goes for 2 days. So it's kind of 8:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. So 12.5-hour days, big days. And a lot of people at first go, "Wow, that's so long." I need that time to build rapport. I need that time to open up. Most of my audience come along not wanting to be there, resistant.
They're being made by the parents.
Yeah. I mean, it's changed. It's changed in more recent years just because we've had so many go. And we have so many people come back and do it again. So there's great word of mouth. But even a best friend will tell someone, come along, and they're still like, oh, I don't know about this. So, in
seminars, it's always that like, is it just woo-wah? Is it just it's fluff kind of internet? It's not actually proper education.
Yes.
Because that's kind of what it's molded into with this, kind of guru sort of thing.
Yeah. No, that's right. And so we've had now 26,000 graduates in 6 countries go through it. And so the 6 pillars, the first one around comfort zones is that, we're all in a comfort zone. And when we step outside a comfort zone, we experience a whole lot of emotions. And when I ask the audience, what do you feel? I'll get 10, 20 hands up, and almost the majority of the answers are negative. They'll say, I'm anxious, or I feel afraid, or scared, or nervous.
Like, what do you feel in general?
When you step outside your comfort zone, like, what are the feelings, regardless of what it is, whether it's getting in front of people, speaking in front of an audience, or dancing in front of people, or whatever the risk is you're taking that elevates your heart rate, what do you feel? And most people associate stepping outside a comfort zone with a negative experience.
Right.
Now, that may seem obvious, but my comment to that is, if you associate stepping outside a comfort zone with a negative experience, would you want to step out of it?
Of course not.
Exactly. So the first thing we need to recognize is we need to have a different association. So I summarize all the words they use with fear. So a big focus of what I talk about is fear, in that we all have fear. We'll have fear the rest of our lives. It's our relationship to fear that's the thing I'm interested in. There's a great quote I always use. I say the hero and the coward have the same fears. The hero does it anyway. And that's really the fundamental difference. It's
true though, because we think other people don't have fears, and that's how they got where they are.
Yeah.
No, they have the fears. They just did it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that what's good about that is it gives everyone an even playing field. There's no excuses. They're better than me. And it's not about that. It's about every day we make a fundamental decision, or many decisions, about do we step outside our comfort zone or not. When we do, we take action, and that action forms a reference. That reference is like evidence. Now, whether stepping outside your comfort zone works out or not, like is in it's successful or a failure, we always grow from it.
Yes.
And growth is what we need to focus on, not the result, but the growth from the experience. If we see the fear and stay in our comfort zone, all we do is we validate the fear. And guess what? That fear just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it becomes harder and harder and harder. And so what people need to recognize is, if you were devout of confidence and self-esteem, the first thing you need to do is just push yourself.
Yeah.
You got to push yourself out of fear, because the only way to get over fear is to face it. And I know this seems trivial and obvious, but it's true.
No, but you need to hear it.
It's the only way.
You need to hear it so you become self-aware. So that whenever you notice yourself feeling uncomfortable, not wanting to do it, you go, oh, well, that guy on that podcast said, I need to step out, and you just do it. Yeah. And one of the mantras I've heard is like, discomfort precedes victory. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, it's probably going to be good for you.
Yeah.
I try swap out the words and say I get excited by discomfort. I also get anxious and excited.
Yeah.
Speaking on stage, that really excites me. It also scares me.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It is okay. And because you're respecting it as well. And I think that's an important point. I remember whenever I got comfortable on stage, something didn't work out.
Yeah.
So when I respect it, I have the butterflies. There's a bit of nerves. I always nail it. But so that's the first primary idea. And I say when you continue to grow, you achieve success. And success is an abstract term.
Of course, yeah.
We all have a different definition for it. But if success is you being a great mum, that's success.
Yeah.
If success is you being a bus driver because that's what you always want to do, then you're a success.
Yeah.
It's really just about you fulfilling the dreams and goals that you have.
I think a lot of success comes down to financial well-being, relationships. I guess enjoying your job is probably a big one. It sounds silly, but enjoying your job and relationships, I think that if you've got both those, you're doing
better.
You're
in the shade.
You're doing better than most people in the world.
Yeah. I always reference the truest wealth is wealth in relationships. When you're at a funeral, my wife always says, no one says, oh, that Jimmy did great spreadsheets at work. Yeah. They don't say that. What they say is the impact you made on the lives you touched for the time you were here.
Yeah.
And so that first idea really sets up an expectation over the weekend that, there's going to be some fear. And that's okay. And that's healthy. And you may want to run for the exit door, but you got one of two choices. Do that or push through. And know that if you push through, you're creating references and you're going to grow your circle of influence and build your confidence. So that's the first pillar.
Because school teaches us to stay within the box, right?
Yeah.
And so when they go to an event like this and it's like completely different to what they're used to at school, it's super uncomfortable. Whereas this should be how we're learning from a young age.
Yeah.
And that's where I think is a fundamental problem. Because, we're stuck in that kind of system where it's just you follow the rules, and then people don't open up. You never open up at school in those conversations.
No.
Maybe you've had like a real good teacher. Sometimes you get in that conversation, you're like, whoa, this is amazing. But that's what these events, because I've been to these events, it's like that the entire time and it's life-changing. It sounds cheesy.
Yeah.
But these events
sounds cheesy, but it's true.
Yeah.
I can't see how many people will say that at the end of the weekend. They'll be crying tears of joy. And these are kids that are coming in like, this is going to be garbage. And at the end going, I want to come back and do this again and again and again. And it's because we don't know what we don't know. And that's the challenge of the comfort zone is we've got to push ourselves to areas that we don't really know how we're going to handle it. And I think I always say that the enemy of great life's a good one. And a lot of people in Australia have a good life. And therefore we don't stretch for great lives because we're comfortable in the good life that we have. So that's the first idea. So the second one of the 6, if you want me to keep going with these,
let's go. Also, I'll throw in. So I went to an event, a presentation event. And what he uses with this, when we're talking about this discomfort, is because obviously everyone can agree, getting up on stage and speaking in front of is that immediate discomfort, and you get anxiety. So it's anxiety or fear, and he reworded it to expanding. That's what he called it.
Okay,
so it's like, so if anyone at that time got up on stage and they just lost their train of thought and they're too anxious to say, I'm expanding, and everyone would respect that. Because it means, as you mentioned, you're
taking
growing.
that moment.
It's like growth, you're expanding. Sounds stupid, sounds cheesy. It works.
Hey, I love it. It's a different way of framing up something that we perceive as a negative thing, but putting a spin on it.
So there's a thing, like if you have anxiety or you have something, just say, okay, it's not anxiety, I'm just expanding. I'm growing.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good one.
There you go. Feel free to use it.
Yeah, I will. So this is a book that I wrote with Dale when we were 19 called The Water Your Feet. And it covers what we call the 7 keys to success. And the first one is actually pillar number 2. A story of 2 brothers, really quickly, 11 months apart. The father's an alcoholic, used to beat their mother. And so the boys had a terrible childhood. They would stand in the way of their mother to take the beatings when they were big enough and strong enough. The first brother grew up to be just like his dad, real troublemaker in school, eventually went to jail for 10 years for crime. He shot a liquor store clerk. The second brother, not an A-grade student, but B-grade. Did really well, committed hard, went to university, got a degree, got married, had a couple of children, making $100,000 a year. This is 30 years ago. A journalist found out about this story. I thought, isn't this interesting? 2 brothers, same upbringing, totally contrasting outcomes. Why? So she interviewed both of the brothers and she asked them both one question. And the question was, why did you turn out the way you did? The first brother in jail said...
My dad.
Yeah.
He blamed on his dad.
How could I turn out any different to the father like that? The second brother said...
My dad?
Yeah, said the same thing. He
Yeah.
said, how could I turn any different to the father like that? And so the lesson in the story is this, is that imagine we're on a ladder and we're on this ladder our entire life and we're either climbing up the ladder or down the bottom of the ladder. And in the middle of this ladder is a line. So essentially we're either on this ladder going above this line or below the line. There are 3 things that people commonly do when they play below the line. They blame other people, they make excuses or live in denial. And the 3 things that people commonly do when they play above the line is they take accountability, responsibility, and ownership. So at the top we have a victor, the bottom victim, or you could say cause and effect, right? And so the idea with that is that the more things that you take accountability, responsibility, and ownership for, as in play above the line, the greater your circle of influence becomes. So the idea of the circle of influence is everything inside your circle of influence, you take accountability, responsibility, and ownership for, and everything outside of it you don't. And just because something's not your fault doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. And when people start to really buy into that mantra, not everything's your fault, but it becomes your responsibility. When we take ownership for everything in our lives, we're in control. When things happen And yes, let's say you're going to school and the bus is late. You could say to the teacher, well, the bus is late. Or you could say, I should have been here on time.
Yeah.
If you say the bus is late, you're right. You're right. It's not about right or wrong. It's about outcome. If you say the bus is late, the bus is in control of the outcome.
Yeah.
If you say I should have been on time, immediately you take different actions like get an early bus or find a different way to school. So again, it's not to say who's right or wrong, whose fault is it, but the more ownership, accountability, responsibility we take, the more in control of our lives we are. And I have to say, of all the ideas that I teach, as simple as that is, it probably has the biggest impact on my audience. It takes them some time for that to really sink in. But I've had people years after say, that above the line concept you shared, that really was profound for me.
Because they're aware and now they start seeing, because once you're aware of the victim mindset, you see it. People, they'll come home and they'll talk about the government, they'll complain about Trump or coronavirus.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is victim, blah, blah, blah. Then people who don't do that, it's such a contrast.
Such a contrast,
And so the latter analogy is really good.
Yeah.
You've got people, the three things up here and the three things down here. Victim,
and victor.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it.
Being at cause or being at effect of circumstances. And the truth is, for my audiences, a lot of them will acknowledge that they've spent probably 51% or more of their life below the line.
For sure.
And they own that. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I always say it because I'm expecting all hands to go up, and they always do. So I go, I love your honesty because I already knew the answer. So that's number 2. Number 3 is a really simple idea. I actually show a scene from The Karate Kid. The end where he does the crane kick.
Yeah.
And I say, how did he win that fight? And he really won it through 2 things. The right state of mind, because he was focused, he was present, and he was certain, and he had a strategy that he was taught by Mr. Miyagi. So when you look at life, whatever you want to do, whether it's cooking a meal, asking someone on a date, going for a job interview, get in the right state of mind, whatever that is, take a moment, get present, center yourself. Like those times in your life when you walk on the field for a grand final. When you're in a peak state, or when you get up in front of an audience you've been practicing for months to play an instrument. They're those times where you've been studying for months for this exam. They're the times already you've been in that moment. How do you get into that moment? And so we do little things like getting into state. We do 1, 2, 3, yes, 1, 2, 3, yes, 1, 2, 3, yes, because it's loud and it's visual. But there's a lot of different ways you can do it.
Have
whatever
you heard,
works for you.
The Wolf of Wall Street one?
No.
He's anchoring, right? That's the strategy.
Yeah, anchoring, correct.
So what he does is he carried this, he calls it like a boom boom stick. It's like a horrible pungent smell that he's carried around in his pocket, and he waited for it took him 12 months until he was at that peak state. And it was he did a talk or something, he nailed it, and he walks off, and then he closes his hand, he closes his eyes, and then he takes a huge whiff of that, and then he does it again, takes a huge, gets that smell, and now whenever he smells that, his brain kind of fires up, and it puts him back into that peak state. And then it's just man, that's pretty cool. It's the same thing.
And it's a perfect example. And it's interesting that he did that with smell, because smell is the strongest memory recall of all the senses. Smell is the strongest. So that's really interesting. He did that.
Yeah.
He
it took him ages. He tried faking it. He tried to set up a fake scenario where he felt good. Didn't work. So he just carried it around and waited until he had that peak moment.
Yeah,
you got to wait till it's natural.
Yeah. But that's it. Anchoring, exactly, is the term for that. And so, having the right state of mind combined with a strategy, you'll get success. Now, we do a process at our program called a board break, where we get them to write down on one side of the board all the negative things that are holding them back. Usually people approach it one of 2 ways. They either reflect on things that have happened to them from people. So they've been victimized or someone's hurt them, or they reflect on qualities themselves they don't like. Ideally, it's a combination of the 2. And what's so powerful about this is we spend 12 hours of the day together, and this is where we go from the head to the heart. It gets very emotional. A lot of people start crying. I love that, because it means they're being honest and they're real. Because it's so easy on a surface-based level, I'd like more confidence, this and this. But let's really peel back the layers of the onion and get really honest. And when they're really honest, it's very emotional. On the other side, they write down the person they want to be, future pacing their life. So one side's negative, one side's positive, and then they hold it up and they break it. But that's a great physical demonstration of getting to a peak state and having a strategy, because I teach them in about 15 minutes the actual strategy, and everybody breaks the board. Some it's more difficult than others, and it's not about strength and power, it's about that state and strategy. And it's such a great reference to validate the idea, because everyone gets the theory, state of mind combined with strategy, but when you actually put it into practice, then you own it. Then, of course, following recipes is pretty straightforward. There's 1 of 2 ways to make a chocolate cake. You follow a chef who's done it for 100 times, or you just get all the ingredients and have a go yourself. And most people do the second way in life. And the first way is so easy. And now with the internet, this is the...
Oh, my God. Say there's school, you used to be a place where you go to get information. Now we have information everywhere. Yeah. People, I think 80% of students attribute learning more on YouTube and learning more on the internet and Google than they do from their teachers.
Yeah.
Which is just insane.
It is, but it's so true. I mean, there's so many mentors and role models now. You're just on podcasts, as we are here.
Yeah, right.
Like people consuming this stuff, they're following recipes straight away. The amount of books. I mean, you don't even need to meet mentors anymore to be mentored.
Yeah.
Like there's just so much leverage now. There's so much free information, and look. We can get into technology. I don't know if we have the time for it today, but there's a lot of negativity around technology, and I'm a big advocate on better relationship with mobile phones because there's screen addictions. There's people are way too on their phones, but if you use it for the right reasons, it can be such a powerful tool. It can be such a powerful tool to really fast track whatever you want in your life. It's just where you're focusing your time on.
And I'm doing both, right? I feel like I use it for the wrong reasons and I use it for the right reasons. And I think you mentioned, did you want to real quickly kind of discuss that experiment you're doing with your phone?
Sure, yeah. So look, obviously, I don't know when this gets released, but we're kind of in the midst of COVID right now. Yeah. And when it started, we all went into lockdown, and I wanted to, for my youth community, I've got thousands of them on social, I wanted to be a voice, a sound voice for them in this difficult time. So we launched this initiative called Living Room Learnings, where we're doing daily Zoom classes and Facebook Lives. So we were doing like yoga every day, meditation every day. We were doing gratitude workshops once a week. We were doing goal setting classes, dance classes. Like we did 150 classes in 4 months. But it made me be on the phone way more. And I got 2 kids. I got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I never wanted them to say, Dad, get off the phone. And my son did. And it was like a light bulb moment. I was like,
the gun to the head moment.
Yeah, it was. I was like, I never wanted my son to say that. And I was on the phone. I needed to be, but nevertheless, I knew I could be more disciplined around it. So I decided to launch this experiment that we're now 80% through. It's called the social experiment. And the idea was we all need the phone. But it's become such a poor habit for people to just look at their phone. 67% of people get phantom phone calls, meaning the phone vibrates, they pull it out and nothing's happened.
I've had that.
Yeah.
I mean, probably text messages more.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just if my phone's in my pocket, I'll feel it vibrate.
Yeah.
It didn't actually vibrate.
I'm like, because your body's attuned to it.
Yeah. Especially it's always in the right upper thigh when I keep my phone.
Yeah.
You get that there.
Yeah.
That's
it's crazy.
That's bad.
Yeah, and it's we're so reliant on it, and so I know that, and we've talked about this, that it takes 60 days to create a new habit or break one for that matter, and so what I thought was the experiment is, and I guess we're sharing this because anyone watching this can do this.
Yeah.
Like this is something that anyone can say, you know what, I'm going to give myself 65 days to really commit to this. So what it is, you have 1 day off technology. Now, when I first did this, it was for myself, but I wanted to bring some of my youth community. So I had 40 people commit to this, and I realized it was probably unrealistic to commit a whole day off the phone because people got university, they got school. There's things you just need it for. So here were the rules.
But it's back to that thing. It's using the phone for the work reason. If you're using a phone for uni, everything that's fine. But are you scrolling on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for 4 hours a day? That's
right. So the rules were, if you need to use your phone for work or university, you can use it. You can only have 1 hour of social media in the day. So you can't use it for the first 30 minutes, last 30 minutes. You can have 1 hour of social media if you choose, if you desperately need to be on it, but can only be in 3 intervals. So you can't do 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that is.
I'm always pulling it out and just...
It's just the habit, right? You just look at it.
It's 100%
And so it's about snapping that. So you got 3 strategic times. So you can use 20 minutes on Facebook, 20 minutes on Insta, 20 minutes on Snap, however you divvy it up. And then the second day, so that's the first day. Then day number 2, go hog wild again. Use as much as you want. But then on the third day, you now have a 2-day break. And then you have a day off. Then you have a 3-day break. Then a day off. Then
these breaks are still
constantly
30 minutes in the morning. No, the first 30 minutes you wake up, no phone. Last 30 minutes before you go to bed, no phone.
Yep.
Then you get 1 hour and 3 intervals in the middle.
Correct.
And then you can use it anything work related.
Correct. Yes.
So that comes to discipline. You've got to be
discipline. Yeah.
I'm going to use it for
what
work.
I'm trying to do is bring habit and discipline around using the phone. So what it's about is being more mindful of the phone and being more present. You see, when we're present, we sit in our own thoughts, we ask questions, and the quality of questions we ask always determine the quality of response. And I think, and this is a personal view here, this is not backed up by any facts. This is just 20 years on stage and seeing the changes in my audiences. And what I've seen the change in my audiences is way more people have anxiety.
Way more. 100%
Way more.
agree with
Like
that.
it's so normalized now. Where back when I did it, it was when I started Empower You, no one knew what that word meant.
Everyone has anxiety.
Everyone,
Ask any of my friends. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And if they're just joking or kind of being that kind of, we've got quite a dark sense of humor, Gen Z.
Yeah.
It's like, I've got anxiety. It's like, do you actually have it or are you just joking? I think everyone has it to a degree now because there's so much pressure on us.
Yeah.
And I think the phone just gives you so much anxiety.
100%. And so I think anxiety, again, personal opinion here, I'm happy to be corrected. But I think one of the biggest reasons for the spike in anxiety is we don't talk to ourselves enough anymore because we have so much distraction. And when we have distraction, our mind's constantly going, and to just sit in our own thoughts is almost strange now.
It is.
Like to go to a park, sit on a park, Matt, just try and sit on a park bench for 10 minutes and not do anything.
Oh, it's hard.
See how hard that is.
I spoke about this in another episode with actually a survival expert. He spent
Right.
a year in the bush alone. No, obviously.
Wow.
So that he spoke about that in detail. Lots of things happen, but he's off the phone. He doesn't really have social media presence. He's like, so many people just aren't in touch with their own thoughts.
No.
And I've started meditating, trying to do 10 minutes a day. I find it so difficult.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for a while. I still struggle just to
just get yourself quiet.
I'm racing. My brain's racing.
Yeah.
Constantly kind of wanting to open my eyes. It's like when, and then, but once you can kind of get into it, I find with meditation, I think this is what people try to achieve. I can feel it when you kind of relax and you're just like, okay, this is nice.
Yeah.
But I struggle with it. And
it's difficult, but I think it's stay with the course because it's so valuable. And I think
60 days for the habit, right?
60 days, that's right. And so when we look at, the coronavirus right now, I mean, if people just tune in constantly to the outside world, you're going to feel like shit.
Yes.
Really.
Real
I mean,
bad.
if all you're doing is watching the news. And so being present is just, there's a lot of stuff outside of your control you can't do anything about. So why don't you dial down that and dial up the things that you can actually do something about that are in your circle of influence to dictate, control, or change. And for me, the phone, that's where it's danger, is it just connects you to everything all the time. And I think there's a sense of overwhelm. And I think that's a big reason, again, why there's such a spike in anxiety. I had so many other thoughts were just flying my mind there to talk about, but
well, I mean, so we're talking about the experiment, right?
Yes.
So you had 40 people take on this experiment. You're 80% through. What are the numbers looking like now?
About 4 or 5 left.
So 10% survived.
And you know what? Like when I went into this, I did say to everyone, I want you to start, but I want you to know you don't have to finish. I wanted to get as many people to commit to the start as possible. And even though I made it so easy, I still only got 40, which says a lot about how much they need their phone.
Yeah.
But we only got 4 left now, which is a bit of an indictment on how difficult it is for people to break away from what is the biggest addiction that we're seeing now. I mean, I was mentioning to you on the phone the other day, in the last 10 years, the major addictions in young people which lead to anxiety and depression are underage sex, drinking, smoking, and drug use. All of those have dropped by 50%. They have dropped by 50%.
In the past 10 years.
In the past 10 years. So young people, it's gone down. We're always talking about, they're on drugs, this and that. No. It's halved.
Which is great. So less
It's
drinking,
so great.
less drugs.
Yeah, less drugs. Less underage sex,
sex.
which leads to teenage pregnancy, all half, which is huge. And I don't know why the media is not like saying, isn't this amazing?
It's not negative.
It's not negative. Yet, in that same time, mental health issues have doubled in young people. And mental health issues are usually a precursor to these addictions. So why is it doubled? The phone. The phone and technology and social media is the new addiction for young people.
The phone is a gateway to so many things. It's like we could talk about, so are you addicted to your phone? Or are you addicted to constantly talking to someone?
Yeah.
Or are you addicted to are you addicted to comparing yourself? You're addicted to followers. Like there's so many
the
subcategories.
validation of likes and comments.
There's so many subcategories within the phone, but we just package it into we're addicted to the phone. Because I agree, like I don't really get addicted to things, but my phone is up there.
Yeah.
Like I actually kind of struggle to get addicted. Sometimes I want to just enjoy a movie or enjoy a TV series or a game, but I just can't get into it. But my phone, that's up there.
Yeah. And you've got to put away. I mean, coming back to filmmaking, I had a light bulb moment, and I'll share just because you've gone down this path. I got I think 5 or 6 tech tips, real simple ones. Is that I was watching a movie, and I'm a filmmaker, and I was watching a movie, and it got boring, and I put it in my phone. And I caught myself going, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing? This is craziness. I can't even stay present for a film. That's a problem.
You're not on TikTok, are you?
No. Well, I've got it, and I've looked at it a handful of times. I can see why people are on it.
You're not addicted to it because I put a lot of time in TikTok for work. But that's the thing. I justify it as work. I'll go on to post a video, then I'll freaking scroll for 20 minutes. But TikTok has ruined our ability to watch movies because we get dopamine hits every second on TikTok.
That's right.
Or and it's great. I love it. But then you go watch a movie and they're just doing some boring dialogue.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, I want to see more. And it's like, I've seen that. I've caught myself like struggling to watch movies. Exact same thing as you.
Yeah, it's very sad. And I think they said the average attention span has gone from 30 minutes down to 7 seconds.
Wow.
Because as you said, they're constantly looking for the next hit. It's like a drug. It really is. I mean, it does all the same things that any drug will do.
It's someone, because I put out lots of content on TikTok. I mentioned about 3 or 4 videos a day of this. This is going to be on TikTok right now. Oh man, it's not even, I used to do Facebook videos. First 3 seconds has to be engaging. using, it's like half a second on TikTok.
Yeah.
I've caught myself doing it. The second I see an ad on TikTok, the speed at which I scroll through it,
Yeah.
it's like half a second. I just is like, bang.
Yeah.
I don't want to see an ad.
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I don't think, there's studies being done right now on the negative impact, and so many young people are the Guinea Pig Generation.
Yes.
Because they were born into it.
Yeah.
My daughter was in a Westfields not too long ago, and she walked up to a big like kind of illuminated advertising board, and she's whacking it. I go, why? Is she whacking that? Because she wanted to change it.
Oh, right.
She thought she could change it by hitting it.
Yeah.
It's just like such a trigger. There's a screen there, and it wasn't a moving thing. It was just a poster.
Yeah, but that's
But
conditioning.
she thought conditioning was like, let me change that. I don't like it. But I share 6 tech tips because I think we agree. Technology, we can't be like, throw out the mobile phones. Let's start lighting.
No, it's unrealistic.
It's unrealistic. Like, this is the world we live in. But it's about having habits. So outside that 65-day social experiment, here are my tech tips. First and last 30 minutes of your day, no phone.
Yes.
Just commit to being present when you wake up. This is hard for me in the morning. Night, easy for me. The last 3 or 4 hours of my night, I don't have a phone, but it's hard for me in the morning. I love Premier League. I follow Liverpool.
Right.
So I'm always like looking up articles and stuff like that.
Can I add on that to help that in the morning?
Yeah.
Get an alarm clock.
Get an alarm clock.
Don't use your phone as an alarm clock.
Yeah.
Because then you've got to get up, hit the button. Oh, here's my phone.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, if you can remove your phone just so you can't reach it.
Well, that's actually one of my other tech tips.
There you
Don't
go.
have any technology in your room.
Because
it's the habit. Yeah. It's that. My alarm clock's my kids. So
Yeah.
that's a bit different for me. But yeah, so it's first and last 30 minutes. Use your measurement apps. So look at like the length of time you're spending on a day every day. 6 hours a day, because whatever is measured is improved. If you've got 6 hours a day, let's even get to 4 hours a day. Let's even get to 3 and get it to what you think is healthy and realistic for you. The next one is, as I said, no technology in your room. If you can avoid, especially a phone not being charged in your room, because it's that, especially when you wake up at night, there's this propensity to maybe look at it and just see, and then you're awake.
Yeah.
And poor sleep is one of the
blue
precursors
light
to mental health.
It's woken you up.
Yeah, exactly. The next one is once a month, no phone for 24 hours.
Okay, cool.
Now, if you're going to send someone a message or make a phone call, then do it. You're going to write an email, do it. But other than that,
it's a scrolling.
It's just you just got to keep it away. The next one's a big one, and this comes to your challenge. You were saying about using the phone a lot, is commit to a tech-free break every day. Like say, right, from 1 to 4 o'clock every day or whatever. It can be a moving target, but commit to a block of time, 2 to 3 hours, where literally the phone goes in a drawer, it's locked away with a timer. Whatever you got to do to just not have it there. And you'll be amazed. If you commit to this every day, 3 hours a day, every day for a month, watch how good you feel in those 3 hours. Because you know what? You know you can't be distracted. You know there's nothing to look at. So you've just got to be with yourself.
Yeah.
And if it's uncomfortable and awkward, recognize there's a problem.
And you're expanding.
Yeah. And you're expanding.
Yeah.
Like if you're feeling like I can't handle this, that's exactly why you need to double down on it.
Yes. Like if you're going, that makes me feel sick to put my phone away for 3 hours because what if my girlfriend messages me? What if my mates message me? Then you need to do it.
Yeah. Own the problem.
Yeah.
Own that problem right then and there. I mean, we run a 5-day camp twice a year. It's a live-in residential, and I have no phones on my Empower You program, and everyone adheres to that. No one's pulling out their phone. I just take them, and they're really good with that. At the camps, obviously people can go back to their room and text their boyfriend, things like that. So I say there's no phone usage for 5 days. For 5 days. And I have traps. I can't reveal them if any of my students ever see this, but I have ways in which I know anyone who's on their phone. I have a way. They don't know how, but I know. And I call them out on stage. I know, you're on your phone last night. And
No way.
How'd you know? and it's amazing because I say, give yourself the 5 days. Because if it's uncomfortable now, like think about you in 10, 20 years, how much worse this is going to be. Give yourself 5 days with me. And what happens is, first few days, they freak out. By day 4 or 5, they're like, oh my God, it's so great. I don't need that anymore. Yeah. You just need that enough time to get over it.
Go cold turkey or something.
Yeah. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio in Basketball Diaries. He's on heroin. They lock him up for 3 weeks. He's wigging out, but in the end, he's okay. You've got to get through that struggle. And people got to recognize that. And I think part of Empower You is just making people aware.
Yeah.
Like a lot of teenagers don't even entertain these ideas we're talking about. They don't even think of why it's bad. But when you can create the space and build rapport, and then I have these kind of conversations on day 2. Not on day 1. Day 1, they're like, who's this bloke? Day 2, they're like, okay, totally up for whatever you got to say. And we have these conversations. And I'm telling you now, every one of my teenage audiences, every single one of them are grateful for the conversation. Every single one of them recognize they have bad habits. No one's saying, this is rubbish.
Yeah.
The phone is great for me.
Yeah.
I'm always feeling better when I spend 2 hours on Instagram. My life is more enriched and I'm more empowered. Everyone acknowledges. And I think it's that awareness that we really need to be pushing a lot more for young people, just that awareness. And I think parents need to take more responsibility as well.
It's funny. I mean, this is why they did the podcast, right? And this is where it's like, I'm struggling. It's like, because right now I know if you're listening to this podcast, anyone listening to this podcast, they're self-motivated. They've made the decision to listen to this podcast because they want to learn. And I guess we are trying to get in front of those kids who their parents made go to that event. Yeah. They were skeptical. Like, who's this old guy who's going to be teaching me stuff about being young, telling me to get off my phone. He's probably understanding all that sort of stuff. Yeah. It's like, that's who we need to be getting in front of. Yeah. Because it's a closed-minded victim mindset sort of thing. Yeah. Just again.
Totally. Oh, 100%. I mean, and it's only going to get worse. And I just think it's so tricky. I mean, I know Gary V would probably be arguing against this. Gary Vaynerchuk, he's like, people were saying the radio was outrageous and then, dancing with low skirts and then the TV. Yeah. I get all of that. But the phone and the internet is a whole other level, a whole other level of everything. Like everything. You can access anything and everything. I mean, I'm on some parenting pages, of course, by what I do. And there was a woman who posted, she posted a screenshot. This is what my 8-year-old son was looking on a web browser. And it was all like bestiality and like gangbangs. This is an 8-year-old.
Oh
my son's 7. I'm thinking that's Caden, my 7-year-old in year 1 is looking up, like it was just a list of all the full on like.
How does he even know what that is?
I know. And she said, horrifying. What should I do? And then some parents are like, oh, that's just the way it is now. I'm like, we can't accept that. No. Like there needs to be more, like I'm going to tell you now, like I'm on lockdown with my kids with technology. Look, do they use the iPads every day? Yes. It's part of their life. If you deny someone completely, all they want is it.
Yes.
Right?
By saying don't do drugs.
They're going to do them.
Yeah.
So it's about finding that balance. And so, it's about rewarding them. Okay, it's a reward. You can use it. There's a time frame. And I always say to Caden, the moment you get angry with me taking off, that's when it's banned for a week. So when I ask for it off you, all you need to do is say, thanks, Dad, for letting me have it. And you're going to get it again later today.
Nice. That's really good.
And that's what I do.
That's a great tip.
Because I don't want him to associate when I take it off as this big argument, then it's a problem. I said, Caden, because I'm a gamer. And I said, Caden, I'm on your side. Listen, I love video games. It's your mum who doesn't want you playing video games, which I totally understand. So I've been advocating for you to play video games from the day you were born. So I'm on your side. But to do it, it can't become a problem. The moment it becomes a problem, then it's my problem. And I always have to reframe, and this is for parents out there. And I say this as a parent, and I say this as an educator of teenagers for 20 years. You got to be a parent first and a friend second, because most parents want to be a friend first and a parent second.
Yeah.
But in being a parent first and a friend second, I'm always constantly reminding Caden of why. I say, Caden, he's like, my friend at school, he plays Roblox, and they do a chat. I'm like, you're 7 years old, you're not chatting with people on internet. That's it. He's like, but other kids are allowed. I said, I don't care what other kids are allowed. You're not. You're 7.
I didn't even have that. Like, I didn't have chat until I was into high school, really.
Of course not.
And so it's just like, and I still, like, obviously I had it throughout high school, which is still dangerous, but I guess that didn't really cross my, like for me it was on the phone.
Yeah.
Which is still easy. And for you probably had to, you only got a certain amount of time on the phone. Sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
But he's sitting there and he's going, H-I space H-O-W-R-U. And I'm like, who are you talking? What's this?
They're going to be fast by the time they're 12.
Yeah. So we've locked that out and he gets upset and I sit him down and say, Caden, listen, I need you to understand. The only reason I'm saying no is because I love you so much. If I didn't care about you, I'd say, do whatever you want. Have chocolate, have ice cream, have this, watch this. I said, I love you. And my job and responsibility is to impart on you quality, values, and beliefs and make you an amazing young man. And he's starting to get that. And I've been hitting him with that kind of, that narrative since he was born. And of course, when he's 2 or 3, he doesn't even understand what I'm saying, but I've been saying it consistently. And now he gets it. And he sees other kids. He goes, I understand why you do that, Dad.
And that's impressive because like, I understood quite early on as well, but I know there's a lot of kids who don't appreciate what their parents did to them when they were, like, for example, we used to have the no phone in the room rule, and I hated it. I didn't mind it too. My brother hated it and stuff, and my parents put this internet restriction, so we only got like 1 gigabyte of usage a day, and I hated it. We hated this, but now I look back and I go, okay, it's difficult as a parent because it's so easy just to not put that restriction on us.
So easy.
And if they'll feel loved by their kids, but it's like long term, it's going to be, I appreciate what they did. Yeah. Now that I'm older and I've got the maturity to understand why they did that, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And part of my, now I'm a dad, Because my audiences were my peers for so long, you know, and now I look at them as my children because I got children now, and I try and bat for the parents. I know that, look, some of the parents for the kids that come to my program, terrible.
Yeah.
And some parents I've learnt shouldn't be parents, but they still brought you into this world. And so I always say to the students that don't have great relations with their parents, I say, maybe you take the responsibility of working on that. Don't make it about them. Make it, you know, because I'm sure you'd love to have a great relationship. But to all the ones that have an okay one or a good one, know that a lot of the decisions they make that you're not happy with are probably because they're only thinking of your best interests.
And food's a good one, right? Because you mentioned it's so easy, and bad food's cheaper.
Yeah.
It's easy to get Tim Tams and crap food and give
So
that to them,
easy.
and they'll be
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
If it's like, but we're trying to make sure that you grow up healthy. And I've said this before, any kid that kind of, well, my opinion, like you said, any kid up to like kind of 12, 13, if they're overweight, it's really not their fault. It's their parents or how they grew up and the environment they were in.
I agree.
And once they hit a certain age and they kind of go, okay, now I've got the self-awareness to start eating myself and make those decisions, you see a lot of people go from 16 to just lose a lot of weight because they've become self-aware.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they get bullied because they're overweight, but it's like, it's just harsh because it's
so
not their
harsh.
fault.
Yeah. No, it is harsh. It is harsh. And I think, you know, with technology, the challenge for a lot of parents now is that the mobile phone, I see these younger kids, mobile phone or iPad is a pacifier.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
We're going to get to dinner. You know what? I just want to see you. We'll just watch this.
Yeah, yeah.
What I do, and I did this, Caden came along to one of my meetings a couple of years ago. He said, I said, you want to come to one of my meetings? He said, oh my gosh, yes, Dad, yes.
Yeah.
So I said, but you've got to be respectful. You need to listen. And if you do all of that, at the end, I'll let you use the phone for 10 minutes. And so I had that carrot. And so he sat there in this hour meeting and just listened. As a 5-year-old, just listened.
Powerful.
Attentive. And what was good was the guy that I had the meeting was like, my God, your son
Yeah.
is so... I said, thank you.
Yeah, it's good for the ego.
Yeah. And I said, you know, you've done such a great job, Caden. Here's the phone. You can watch so-and-so for 10 minutes. And so I wanted to just really... That whole dream struggle prize. And it's not about just... Yeah, the easy way is not the best way. And it's easy to say that, but I certainly want to make sure that I'm everything as a father that I am as a presenter and teaching those things. But wow, we've gone off on a lot of different tangents. It's been nice and flowing. I've enjoyed this.
The phone.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we let's rapid fire, go through the pillars
Rapid
again.
fire, yeah. So,
and then I want to talk a little bit about kind of school and what we think we should be learning.
Totally. So the first one was comfort zones, and the second one was playing above the line and responsibility. The third one was stay in strategy. Fourth one was following recipes. Fifth one was dream struggle prize. So about having delayed gratification for anything. Patience. Particularly around money. You know, we do a whole section, I know you're very passionate about this, on wealth creation. And I talk about compound interest and managed funds. I talk about property.
The basics.
Yeah.
Stuff we don't learn.
Gold and silver.
Yeah.
I talk about what money is. Like, have you ever read what it says on money?
Why can't we
what
print
that
money?
means?
Why can't we just print money to solve our problems?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice?
Seems easy, right?
Enough governments do that, don't they?
Yeah, I think America does that.
Yeah. And so, but I say in this, look, you know that it's a long game. Know that it's not going to happen straight away, but if you're committed and you see it through, it won't be as long as you think it will be. So that's pillar number 5. And number 6, actually, and I'll send you a link, because I recently filmed this story in a podcast style. When this pandemic hit, I thought I'll put some online content out of the stuff that I teach live. It's a story, it's my most famous story that I share on stage. And people have known this story that 20 years ago, they'll say, do you remember this story when you worked at a video store? And they'll go, yes.
Yeah, it's one of those.
So it was originally a 30-second story about how many videos you could carry in one go, then beating that record. So VHS, because I worked at Civic Video. Okay, you know when they carry them out and they put them on the shelf?
Yeah.
So I turned it into a game to see how many I could take out of one go. Then I beat that record. Anyway, I'll save the whole crescendo of the story for you to watch it, because it's 20 minutes long and it's a really good story. But the lesson of the story is this. If we want to change our results in life, we have to ask ourselves what determines those results. And what determines those results are the actions we take. Our actions determine our results. What determines our actions? Every decision we make is born out of 2 motivations: to avoid pain or gain pleasure. They're the 2 motivators. To avoid pain, we'll do stuff to avoid pain, and we'll do stuff to gain pleasure. And what's in the middle is the comfort zone. So it's our feelings that determine our actions, and our actions determine our results. But what's
Would you
the thing?
say emotions? Or is that different?
Feelings, emotions, same.
Cool.
Yeah, totally same thing.
Yeah.
But what's the most important thing? If you want to change your results, what determines your feelings? And it's your thoughts. You want to change your thoughts, you change your life. So I thought that carrying videos was lame and it sucked and I didn't like it. I asked the question, how can I make it fun? I'll see how many could do in one go. So it wasn't the thing I was doing, it was my perception of the thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's how I saw it. And that's so important for everyone to realize. It's never the life that you're in, it's the way in which you see it. And I'm a big believer that when you reframe a situation, you breed gratitude. And gratitude equals happiness.
Yeah, and Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends, Influence People, right? I'm sure you've read that.
Yeah.
Amazing book, highly recommend it. Is the story in there, the factory workers, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
it's just like, so how do we get more output out of these workers? They tried everything. They brought in managers. They brought in experts. I mean, how can we get more results? We need that to do more. And they had the daytime and the nighttime shift. On the daytime shift, they said, all right, boys, how much did you get done? They got 4 output or 4 things done. Okay. They put 4 on the big wall. Then the night boys come in and go, oh, the day boys got 4. Let's beat that 5.
Yeah.
And they turn into a game. 6. They got up to like 40 or something.
Yeah.
Just through this. They went from to 4 to 40, like a literal 10x growth.
Yeah.
Just from that little changing the way your mindset and changing the way they kind of turned it into a game and made it a bit more fun.
Totally. And again, these seem like simple ideas, but they're so profound if you really buy into them. I mean, I remember where I share the civic video story as a point in case, but I remember my first and only real job, which was with this personal development company and wealth creation company. You know, I'd have to do envelopes, like putting in envelopes. And it's such a monotonous task. So again, I thought, how many can I do in a minute? Go. Just to make a game of it. And so the final pillar is thoughts dictate feelings. Feelings dictate actions. Actions dictate results. You don't like your results, change your thoughts. And what impacts your thoughts? The books you read, the people you speak to, the things you watch on a screen. Everything in your life impacts those thoughts. So take more ownership of what you're feeding your thoughts.
Yeah.
And that will then impact the results you want in your life.
And you have to, because if you're not going to take ownership, you're going to be flooded with negativity. You're going to be flooded with comparison, all that sort of stuff. Like, and once again, I'm so on the edge of cheesy personal development, just like, oh, blah, 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 work hard, blah, blah, blah. And then actually it's so powerful and so important. And so I'm always like everything we've spoken about today, it's like, how can just thinking differently change your life? How can like your thoughts change your life, right? But when you put it into that, your thoughts become your words, become your actions.
Feelings, actions, and results.
Yeah. And when you put it like that and you actually powerfully understand that, and that's just like starting micro. Just start changing your thoughts. It's going to change your feelings. And then those feelings that dictate what you're going to do as your actions. Are you going to go towards pain or pleasure? You're going to leave the comfort zone and chase discomfort, which is going to precede victory or want to
expand.
It's like Yes Theory. Do you know Yes Theory?
Yes.
They've got a clothing brand, Seek Discomfort. That's a brand because that's what they're all about.
Yeah.
So you've got to seek discomfort. You've got to get out of that comfort zone. But what was that, number 5 pillar?
That was 6.
That was 6. That's the 6
They're the
pillars.
6, yeah.
Awesome. So they're the 6 pillars. You've probably got some stuff online if people want to check them out.
Heaps of stuff, yeah.
But I also, before we wrap up, there's a few things. We've had a great conversation.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about the schooling system.
Yes.
I think, especially lately, like I've been reading books, getting into it, and I just think it's really broken for a lot of reasons. And people often will kind of say to me, and same with uni, they'd be like, oh, actually, uni wasn't the best, but I did learn some great things. It was I wouldn't change it. I'm like, yeah, you're going to learn anything if you do it for 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm saying you could have learned 10 times more if you went this way, or if you traveled for 3 years, or if you did this for 3 years. Same with school. It's like school, they do teach us the basics, though. We do still learn all the stuff that is important. It doesn't take us 12 years to teach you the basics. We can do that, and you can probably do that in a week, honestly. With the like a 12-hour day, there's stuff you can teach them in a week. So just love to kind of get your thoughts as someone who runs programs outside of school. You mentioned, obviously, there are still good stuff school teachers, obviously, but you work together. So what kind of skills do you bring in, and what skills do you think we should be learning that are the fundamentals? We kind of mentioned them earlier. Yeah.
So the first comment, coming back to the whole who uses these certain things in school, like who uses Pythagoras' theorem in life, my argument to defend it, firstly,
let's do it.
My argument to defend it is that it's, and this is when I say to my students when they go, I don't need school, I just want to get out into the workforce. So you may not need school, but I'm personally a big believer in seeing at year 12, not for the education, but for the life experience.
Yes.
And the way that in year 11 and 12 you're treated like an adult with your peers, you'll never get that time back.
I knew I didn't need NATAR.
Yeah.
I was like, I could probably drop out now in year 11. But I wanted the social life.
Yeah.
I wanted I wanted to go formal. I wanted to do that stuff.
And all those things are important.
Yeah.
I think all those things are important. So I think sticking out of school is not necessary for the marks or the school. I've never pushed marks on anybody saying you need marks or you need to go to university. I'm so not that at all. But I think there's a lot of life lessons you get from completing school. So that's my first comment. My second comment regarding, do you need all these things? Maybe you don't. But what it does do is it educates you on discipline, training your mind and learning things. I guess what we're talking about is they could probably channel and focus on better things to learn. which
and
I totally agree.
And the way we learn.
Yeah.
Like for me, this is kind of the reason I started this, because I don't learn by looking in a textbook and reading. I learn what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I'll get more done in a 1 hour brainstorm, like bouncy ideas of 2 or 3 people and putting up on the whiteboard the sticky notes you said. I'll get more done in that 1 hour than I would in like a week, honestly, if I was researching writing and just kind of having to do the way school teaches.
When they talk about the ways in which we learn, so 60% of the population, don't quote me on this stat, but 60% of the population are visual learners. So they learn best by seeing. But then we got another percentage, I think it's about 20% are auditory. So they learn best by listening. Like when I'm at home and I'm working, I'm playing music all the time.
Yeah.
Or I'm just got things. My wife can't stand that. She wants it to be silent because that's her thing. But I'm like, no, I actually find inspiration from that. I find I'm much more focused when I have those things. Then we have kinesthetic learners, which learn by touch and feel. And they're the ones in class that are always flicking their pens and doing things like that. And then we have the more recent learning modality is audio digital. They are thinkers. So I'm an audio digital learner. So audio digital learners usually are strong in visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, but they are in their heads a lot. And so the first thing I think we need to do is we need to reformat the education system to cater for all 4 learning modalities. So we can't just do one or the other, but if we blend it, that means people are getting a flavor of strength in one area, but they're getting a gamut of all of them. So we learn some by auditory,
100%.
Visual. That's my first comment.
Have you had a format?
Sorry?
Have you had a format?
No.
Okay, so that's the same sort of thing, but she says there's 8 learning types, but there's kind of 2 in each of the 4.
Yes.
And yeah, I was learning at the presentation workshop how when you're presenting, you want to try address all 4 learning types. If everyone's engaged, everyone in the room is engaged because you're addressing, and it's super common. Like some woman did it in the 80s, and they've been working on it. It's like a really in-depth study. So anyone interested, it's the number 4, then MAT.
Right. Okay.
It's very similar.
Yeah. I mean, at my seminars, I try and hit, like I'll go, who's following my conversation? They're the kinesthetics.
Yeah.
Then I'll go, I'll leave the end off a sentence. They're the auditory people. So I actually will on stage trigger different learning modalities in the facilitation, which all teachers, if they had that skill set, I mean, that was where my excitement came from doing that, possibly doing that one day entrepreneurial day, is I said, let me teach them the things that I do.
Yeah.
Let me teach them the way in which I facilitate and teach, because clearly I get an audience of 200 kids that don't want to be there and at the end don't want to leave. So there's things that I'm doing. It's not just my content, but it's the delivery of that content.
100%.
It's not what I say, but how I say it. I think we're jumping around a little bit here, but I think why it hasn't changed, and again, this is just my personal opinion, I think it's just...
This is all opinion, yeah.
It's such a scary monster to tackle.
Oh,
and I don't know if
huge.
the person who takes ownership of change will then be the responsibility of that change. And so I think, that being said, all change throughout the history of the human race has not been by many, it's been by one.
Martin Luther King sort of thing.
Always one. It's always one person who stands up. There's a great video, I don't know if you've seen it online. It's called Leadership Lessons from Dancing Guy.
No, I haven't seen it.
It's so great. Okay, it's 3 minutes long. So what's happened was there's some like day festival, like big day out. And there's some guy's got his mobile phone. He's just filmed this person who's no shirt, shorts, and he's on this field. And clearly you can't see it, but off camera there must be some performance going on, some concert, right? And he's standing there and he's dancing, and he looks like so uncoordinated.
Yeah.
He's dancing, and then someone's posted this video online, and someone's seen it and done a 3-minute monologue of lessons about leadership. So the video starts off, this one guy's dancing, and everyone's sitting there watching him. Then some guy joins him and starts dancing. He says, there's the first thing. You need the first follower. The first follower validates the lone nut. Then a third person comes, fourth person comes. And as more people go, this person's still teaching these lessons on leadership. At the end, there are hundreds. Within 2 minutes, hundreds around this one guy that started. So point being, I think the education system, someone needs to just get fired up enough to go, we need to make some drastic wholesale changes and then hopefully gather enough energy behind them to do that.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
That's why I use a podcast. I'm trying to build that up as much as I can, because it's, I won't get into it. I'm actually writing a whole book chapter on this.
Yeah, wow.
So we're writing a book for what we'd give to our younger selves. And so I'm writing a whole thing. So I'll release that as a podcast episode. But it's interesting video about leadership. And they do the same thing with in doctors, in rooms where everyone would stand up on the beep or something. It's like they'll be sitting in a waiting room and a noise will beep, and then everyone will stand up, and then they'll go down. And the one person who's not in on it is like, what?
Yeah,
then they'll do it again.
And then they'll stand up.
And then they'll join up again.
Yeah.
And then slowly they all start leaving and going to the doctor. And then after a while, everyone is not in on it. But they're all standing up.
Yeah,
so no one else is actors. They're all just standing up.
Isn't that amazing?
And no one has any idea why they're standing up.
Yeah, the conditioning you can get.
Yeah, that's conditioning.
And I think, obviously the work that I do, my ideal dream and vision, if Scott Morrison's watching and can make this decision, is I'd want the first 2 days of year 7 right around the country, 4,000 high schools. I've already done the math. 4,000 high schools. I need about 400 facilitators, so 400 of me, and I do some of it live stream. We do 2 days in the school that's personal development.
Yes.
That bonds the year group.
100%.
So there's all these kids that are coming in, there's the bullies and there's this, let's just level the playing field in a weekend seminar. I mean, you've experienced this, so you know the power of this kind of stuff. 2 days at school, 3 days at school, where they all just connect and bond. We talk about these life skills, and then we follow it up every 3 months with a day session. And that is interspersed around, because what we'll do is we'll breathe value into the academic stuff.
Yeah, and how many people
wait to that.
don't know everyone in the year group? You've been in this group for 3-4 years. You haven't met everyone.
And imagine the power of everyone being close.
Yeah.
And the drastic reduction in bullying. Which
huge.
is so much bigger now, because just on that point, when we were at school, you start at 9, you finish at 3, and that's when the bullying happened. Now it's 24/7.
It's 24/7.
It's 24/7.
Yeah, and it's subtle. It's not. America does such a bad job in Hollywood of representing bullying. The jock comes up and punches them. That's not it.
No,
that's not it at all. There's no punching at school now. There's no physical. Very rarely.
Not really. No,
it's
that's
just all cyberbullying. It's all behind your back.
Yeah.
It's all group chats. It's Snapchat. It's Instagram stories. It's all that TikTok now. It's all that sort of stuff is bullying. And so I think that needs to be represented a bit better. But I love that idea for so many reasons. And yeah, I think 100%. I had the same thought. This retreat I just said, I was like, man, if we could do this to people in school, oh man, that would change them.
Yeah, it really would. I did. I mean, I speak in schools. I don't do it as much anymore, just because it's just so much red tape, and they want you to come in for 45 minutes or an hour and a half, and my shows go for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Not saying I want 24 hours, but I know that length of time, you build a rapport. It just doesn't happen in an hour. They go, that guy was cool. He made some good points. That was a funny story. And then they forget it. Like, I want it to be a real shift. I did a school years ago, and credit to them. It was actually 6 schools sent all of their leaders for a 1-day retreat with me. 1 full day from 9 till 9.
Nice.
And I did a full day. We finished with a board break, visualization. People were crying tears of joy. And now the general manager of my company came from that event.
Right. I think I did one of
Ishana, who you spoke to.
Oh, right,
She was at that event. That's where I met her.
Yeah, she's lovely.
And you know, I think taking them out of school environment is important. So I prefer school camps versus going into the school.
Because school's got all that association with it.
Yeah, and it's all clicky, and they're in the uniforms. There's that, and when they're out, they feel like mufti. They're already feeling good because they're not in school uniform. So you already got the right attitude to start with. I definitely think personal development has to have such a bigger influence. Like, I think it's like 5% of the curriculum. I think it should be 20 to 30%. You get their mindset
100%.
right, you get their happiness quotient right, all the other stuff falls into place.
Yeah, it's so important.
I mean, did you know, and I'll finish on this point, and this is so scary, I couldn't believe it. Have you seen online where they'll show like these moving charts? They'll say over the last 20 years, like for example, the last 20 years, here are the biggest companies, and they'll move, right?
And
they
Apple,
move up. Yeah,
Microsoft,
they'll go from, things like that. I saw one on the leading cause of deaths. The leading cause of deaths in the world, and they were trying to show COVID, like how big COVID is now. So COVID's at the bottom, it starts making its way up. Number 1, I can't remember what number 1 was, but it sounded right. It's like malaria or something like that. Number 2, by a mile, was suicide. I didn't know that.
That's insane.
I thought, was it cancer? Was it natural causes? Was it heart attack? It's suicide. And this was before COVID. So the second leading death in the world is people kill themselves.
Voluntarily,
because they're not happy with their life. I mean, yes, some people maybe because they're sick and ill, they're in their life.
Yeah.
And I'm open for that, euthanasia and all. I know, but I think if I'm that 80 years of age and I'm feeling shit and want to go, then let me go. But for how many young people kill themselves?
It's the highest it's ever been.
It's unbelievable, cutting themselves, all this stuff. So like, school needs to focus on, you've got the bulk of the time of this young person's attention for the next 12 years. You have the most amount of influence.
And the brain's developing.
Brain developing.
Get that in while it's developing.
This is the time to get their head right. Who cares if they know science if they're not happy with their lives?
Who cares if they get a C, an A?
Who cares?
No one gives a shit.
Like, you got to, they just got to realign their priorities.
Yeah, 100%. And on like suicide, so a fascinating thing about that, there was a guy he's Christian, and he went to like there's a few in the world still, a few tribes that we don't interact with.
Yes.
They live out there.
Yeah.
No idea about
isolated,
the world.
yeah.
It's fascinating. He went to one of those with like a camera crew, and he had a translator, and obviously he didn't get killed. So they let him, and he was talking with them, and he's just like talking about how suicide, and he mentions that it's very serious. And everyone starts laughing, and all the tribes start laughing and pissing themselves. They're going, Why would anyone kill themselves?
Yeah. It's not even entered their mind that that's even a
2 or
possibility.
3 of our children don't make it at 5 years old. Half our mothers are dying from this. Half our men don't make it out when they go on a trip. Life is so valuable. How can we kill ourselves?
How would you kill? Yeah.
They can't even fathom it in their brain. Yet for us, it's like an option. It's like, that's the dangerous thing about suicide, the fact it's even an option.
Yeah.
And I think 1 in 3 men have suicidal thoughts or something like crazy.
It really is. It beggars belief. It beggars belief. I mean, the only time I fully understood why someone would kill himself, and I don't want to go too off topic, there's a movie called Manchester by the Sea. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah. It's Academy Award winning.
Yeah. He won I forget his name. The brother of Ben Affleck, Casey Affleck, won Best Actor.
Yes, that's right, he did.
I saw this movie, and it was the first movie where I understood why someone would kill himself, but it was because this father had to spoil this for you, but he accidentally kills his children. He's responsible for his 2 children burning to death in a fire, and he goes to kill himself. And that was the first time in my life where I understood I would do that. In that moment, because as a father, if that had happened to me, I could understand. But other than that, I've never understood yet. It's the second leading cause of death in the world.
Yeah.
The second leading. And so schools need to look at that and go, what's the most important thing? Having our children happy, well-adjusted, and have the right mindset, and all the other stuff will take care of itself.
But right now, the most important thing is their marks, because that represents a school, which represents the state, which represents our country, as how well we're doing as a society.
Yeah.
And also, how well is the country doing? Let's look at their GDP.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Look at what about their happiness?
Yeah. I mean, I've run many programs in Singapore, and Singapore is the number 1 country in the world for education in youth.
Yes.
So they're marks.
Phenomenal.
Now, the issue with that is that they have the highest suicide rate for 12-year-olds in the world, because in year 6, they do an equivalent of a HSC, and that determines what school they go into.
Wow.
Parents will take a month off work to study with their kid.
Wow.
These are 12-year-olds. And if they don't get the mark, then there's shame on the family. So these kids, because they don't get marks, are killing themselves.
That's an Asian culture. Like, I really like the Asian culture in terms of like honor and respect. But man, they put so much pressure on their kids.
Success over happiness.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we need to be focusing on.
Yeah.
Anyways, we've gone on for a while. Before I wrap up, always ask one final question. Loved everything we've spoken about, but what would be your number 1 piece of advice for younger people? It can be anything we've spoken about. It can be completely what we haven't talked about. What would just be your number 1 piece of advice? 7 words.
Do more than is asked of you. That's it.
Yeah.
Do more than is asked of you. You do that your whole life, you got a man in the shade.
Yeah.
Whatever they say, do a little bit more, and just do that consistently.
Yeah. And because most people won't.
No, they won't.
Once again, it's not that hard to stand out.
Yeah.
We think everyone else is doing more. They're not. Most people drop the ball.
Yeah.
Most people just don't do it. All right, Brent, this has been amazing. For anyone who wants to maybe attend your workshops or find out more about Empower You, get in touch, they've liked what they've heard, where should they go?
Really simple, empower-you.com.au. There's also brentwilliams.com.au, but that's more of a business card website. So empoweryou.com.au, all the information's there.
Links will be below. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Trudy, thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of the Driven Young podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. That means the world to me. And if you got some value out of it, please shoot me a message on Instagram or reach out to me. Or I would love for you to leave a rating or review on this podcast. So make sure you are subscribed, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.